So I'll go through a few use cases. Again, I mentioned about the importance of data quality. So I'm going to go through cleaning up data, connecting it, and orchestrating it. I'll start with cleaning up data. And the analogy that I like to use that helps kind of frame it for everyone is brushing your teeth and going to the dentist. Hopefully, everyone's brushing their teeth every day, sometimes multiple times a day. And yet, we still have to go to the dentist a couple times a year because things start to build up, right? To do a full clean. So I'm going to start by going through and cleaning up data. And as I mentioned before, we're creating so much data all the time. We're creating it manually in Salesforce. We're bringing in through third-party systems and list uploads. And that inevitably causes duplicates that you have to go clean up. And so again, in this analogy of going to the dentist, we're going to do a full clean. We're going to look at that database, find those duplicate records, and clean it up, reduce them, merge them into the individual records that they can be with the best data. Now, it gets a little complex because there's all sorts of rules that you want to figure out along the way. To keep the demo short, I'll focus on an easy use case where we're looking at leads and we're matching them by email match. So an exact match on email. Now, you can get a lot more sophisticated. You can get into fuzzy matching and duplicate rules. You can determine logic around what would define a duplicate. And that's really important around accounts, where an account has different addresses, names, domains, that kind of thing. For leads, we'll just keep it simple for this demo. But you want to set the criteria. And then after you've done that, decide, okay, well, once we find duplicates, and I'll show you some in a minute, which ones should survive? Is it the oldest record? Is it the newest record? Is it the one that has the most recent activity? Is it the one that has the most campaign members? It can be whatever it is that you determine would be best for your business. And you can set it up here in kind of a cascade as well, so that if you find some that have the same age, et cetera, they're brought in the same list upload, then you can default to activity, that sort of thing. Now, what happens when those records, some has a phone number and some doesn't? You can say, well, even if we're going to survive the one that doesn't have the phone number, let's bring the phone number in from one that does. And there's also complexity around things like, hey, let's say someone opted out of your marketing messaging. You probably want to prioritize that, even if it's not the winning record, so you don't get hit with like anti-spam laws. Okay, so we've gone through the rules definition. Customers would obviously spend more time choosing all those. But what does it look like? Now we've gone through and run a match. It's crawled through all of the records, in this case, leads in the database, and it's found those that have the same email address. And you can see there's pages of these. What we try to do is highlight, and hopefully it's showing up on the screen share, the records that will survive based on your rules, as well as the fields that will be on that surviving record. So you can see here that the phone wasn't included on that surviving record, but we're going to bring it in from one of the others. And likewise, that opt-out was on a different record, and we'll bring that onto the new one. So I'll stop there and just see if you have any questions before we move on.
Yeah, so it's not only optimizing for the contacts itself, it's also optimizing for accounts, and it helps to determine the right number of these and volume of these accounts. So it's extremely helpful during the planning process when I need to assess, okay, how many accounts we have based on this criteria, because I'm trying to figure out what my segmentation will be next year, right?
Yeah, it's such a good point. And you're exactly right. I chose leads here, but it could be accounts, contacts, custom objects, opportunities, et cetera, whatever it is that you need to clean up. And you're exactly right. When you go into territory planning, it's really important to know if you're using number of accounts as one sort of balancing between territories, that you have an accurate number. The example I like to use is marketing for leads. A lot of times they're measuring and they're setting goals around how many leads are we going to bring in this quarter. So let's say they bring in 10,000 leads. Well, if 20% of those already existed, they didn't really bring in 10,000 leads. They brought in 8,000 leads, and the rest of them were dupes that they already had in the system.
So yes, you're putting essentially a little bit more pressure on marketing to demand generation specifically to ensure that, they bring in the net new, not what we already had in the database. And maybe you had a signal that was some time ago, but now you're counting this as a new one. So how automated this can be, because the marketing needs to get on the call and explain to me, where they standing in terms of the quarterly target, the monthly target on that front. Is this can be done, in a few minutes, or that can be done over a couple of days?
What this allows you to do is just get an accurate reflection of your data, and then you can put
Hmm.
the pressure on marketing if that's the
Yeah.
plan. But yeah, good question. So when you start, a lot of the initial setup is just choosing your rules. What is your definition of a duplicate? Leads, pretty simple. You can do like name and company or email. Accounts gets more sophisticated. You might actually want to do waves where you're matching on exact match on name and address, but then you get fuzzier for those accounts that don't have an address, that sort of thing. So once you've chosen the rules, it's really quick. In fact, we save the merge plan so that you can run it again later. So you can go to the dentist again in 6 months from now or a quarter from now or however frequently you'd like, because all those rules are defined and it just finds the new ones and we'll clean those up.
Can you set them to auto run? So essentially, like every week, I want to remove duplicates and just go.
You can set jobs to do it. And I'll actually show you in a minute how we orchestrate to do it automatically, that kind of brushing your teeth analogy as well. And if there was ever a problem that you disagree with, oh, shoot, I set the wrong rule. Because everyone gets really nervous once it gets time to delete data. You can actually roll that back. You can roll back over a 30-day period to say, okay, you know what, we screwed up. Let's go do it again. After 30 days, we delete that data so that it's actually cleaning up the database.
Yeah.
So here you could merge an individual set by clicking on the merge button if you're happy with these. Let's say I actually disagreed and I wanted to choose a different phone number. Once I click merge, it'll just do those records. And once I'm happy, I probably didn't save something. Once I'm happy with it, I can actually click merge all and go clean up the entire database. But now let's move on to the idea of brushing your teeth. So we're constantly bringing data in. You're manually creating, bringing it from marketing automation, list uploads. We want to keep it clean ongoing. And so how do we do that? We set up this orchestration or automation that says, let's first check to see internally, what kind of matches do we make? Was it a duplicate of a lead? Was it a duplicate of a contact with the same email address? And if so, you can merge those together automatically. But you want to notify people through Slack or email or other mediums to let them know what happened, right? Because it's a new expression of interest. But let's say it wasn't a duplicate. If that lead came in, it was from a partner. You probably want to assign to the partner team. If it matched to an existing account, did it have an open opportunity? And if it did, probably send it to the sales rep. Or was it an existing customer? If so, send it to the account manager, etc. So there's all these rules that you'd want to typically set up to orchestrate your business. Most of the time, you've never heard of this lead before. It's brand new. And so you want to assign it based on your territory rules. And those can get really sophisticated, right? You have different rules in America versus EMEA versus Asia Pac. In fact, you might have different people who manage those rules. And so we've created the ability to segment it so that someone can manage the EMEA rules and not be able to touch the American rules. And so you can create what we call a nested flow to be able to go in and create those rules independently, give the permission for someone to do that, where they can do whatever those rules are. Now, this can get really complex, as you can see. So we wanted the ability to kind of annotate and create notes to explain what's happening here, because someone's created it and a new person that comes in might have no idea what's going on because it can get fairly big. So you can add these sticky notes, you can create these sections to partition things off.